We must always keep the element of surprise on our side. What are you doing here? I might ask you the same question. I still remember very clearly the feeling of sitting in front of the TV screen every week when the Batman theme music kicked in and Adam West burst into frame in his grey-blue cape. At 12 years old, my friends and I would argue animatedly about the latest episode on the morning bus ride. Which villain was the best, how Batman would escape this time, and whether Robin would shout a new holy yet again. Back then, Gotham was a colorful, safe, and playful world. Hold it, Riddlery, but time passed, and when I revisited those scenes with adult eyes, that feeling began to crack. Beneath the bright paint and the familiar P-Bam sounds were rushed decisions, real risks, and behind-scenes stories that were far less innocent than childhood memories suggested. Batman nearly became a serious crime drama. The wall-climbing scenes that looked dangerous turned out to be camera tricks, while Batgirl's costume was a genuine hazard for the person wearing it. Today, let's reopen the strange and darker backstage door of Batman 1966 and look back at that familiar childhood through a completely different light. Point 20. The Batman cast received impressive pay for the 1960s. Few people realized that Adam West, the central face of the series, was paid about $2,000 per episode, a very substantial sum at the time. Following him were M. Blake, Aunt Harriet, and Alan Napier, Alfred, each earning $500 per episode. Neil Hamilton, Commissioner Gordon, and Stafford Representative Sergeant O'Hara were paid around $450 per episode. The most surprising case was Robin. Despite appearing in nearly every episode and being half of the dynamic duo, Burt Ward received only about $350 per episode. The reason was quite practical when he was cast. Ward was essentially a complete newcomer without name recognition or bargaining power compared to his older, more established co-stars. This pay gap clearly reflects how Hollywood operated at the time. Fame mattered more than screen time. And looking back today, it is hard to believe that the boy shouting "Holy something Batman" was the lowest paid member of the main cast. Point 19. Batgirl's costume was extremely dangerous, and you, Catwoman, are an even bigger fool than I thought you were. We who enforce the law would glad. Batman won't be here. He'll be at the Belgravian embassy thwarting your nefarious scheme. Do you remember the image of Batgirl riding her motorcycle straight into frame in a tight purple outfit? A small mask and her signature confident smile. On screen, it was the perfect image of a 1960s female hero. But beneath that shimmering fabric was one of the most dangerous costumes ever to appear on Batman. The Batgirl costume worn by Yvonne Craig was made from a satin and spandex blend that was very fashionable at the time, beautiful and glossy, but completely non-breathable under studio lights that were hot like an oven. Craig frequently overheated, became dizzy, and suffered dehydration. She later revealed in multiple interviews and in her memoir that on some shooting days, production had toe-stopped just so she could lie down and breathe. More dangerously, the costume was so tight that it severely restricted movement. High kicks, spins, and false staples of Batman 1966 became real hazards. Craig slipped because of the slick fabric, and in one action scene she injured her back, suffering pain for weeks afterward. There was no spectacular action shot without a pricito pay, was there? 18. The 1955 Lincoln Futura was transformed to be worthy of Gotham, Batman and Robin. Courageous warriors against crime. They are off one saga into the rescue. Did the sight of the Batmobile blasting out of the Batcave engine, roaring Robin gripping his seat while Batman calmly held the wheel ever make you jump up from your chair? That was the moment that convinced the entire 1960s that Gotham had the coolest car on television. It is one of the most iconic vehicles in television history, but it was created under extreme time pressure. The producers needed the Batmobile fast. So, car customizer George Barris took a 1955 Lincoln Futura concept car and had exactly 21 days to turn it into something worthy of Gotham. He welded tail fins, added a bat-shaped grille, installed superhero gadgets, and finished just in time for filming. The car didn't just work. It defined the visual style of Batman 1966 and became a pop culture legend. Point 17. William Dozier and the unexpected casting decision for Batman next week, Batman vs. the Joker in next week, Batman vs. Mr. Freeze next week, Batman vs. Zelda the Great. William Dozier was behind many of Batman's bold casting choices, including bringing in well-known faces such as Burgess Meredith as the Penguin and Cesar Romero as the Joker. However, his most unexpected casting decision was himself. Dozier took on the role of the series narrator after auditioning several candidates and failing to find anyone who could deliver the exaggerated melodramatic style he had in mind. Believing that no one could match his own flair for the role, he appointed himself as the voice behind the narration under the pseudonym Desmond Doomsday. creating the distinctive tone-off dramatic parody that defined Batman 1966. The narrator audiences heard for years turned out not to be anonymous at all. He had a name, a voice, and a clear intention. Doya understood that in Gotham's colorful world, exaggeration was not a flaw, but a style. And sometimes the smoothest one is the most dangerous of all. 16. Burt Ward didn't just play Robin. He had to live like Robin. Holy ashtray. Holy smoke. Holy shakes. Holy hedishary. Holy popcorn. Holy Koufax. Holy Jack in the Box. Holy ravioli. Holy Safari. Do you remember the scenes of Robin hanging from ropes, leaping off rooftops, or charging into gangs of henchmen with a non-stop chorus of Holy on Creen? It all looked like colorful 1960s fun. In real life, it was an accident waiting to happen. To save money, the studio refused to hire a stunt double for Burt Ward. As a result, Ward performed nearly all of his own action scenes. Real punches, real falls, real explosions. He was burned by pyrotechnics, cut by shattered props, and in one chase scene was thrown from a moving vehicle. Once during a botched rooftop gag, Ward chipped a tooth and bruised several ribs. Yet, the cameras kept rolling. Later, Ward joked that the call sheet should have read, "Get hurt again today." And still he showed up for every episode, every jump, every familiar panicked exclamation, enduring the pain inside a tight costume and a suffocating mask. 15. Batman almost became a serious crime drama. If you rewatch some of the early episodes of Batman 1966, you may notice something strange beneath the colorful surface. There is still a lingering trace of noir-style detective storytelling. This was no accident. When the project was first proposed, producer William Dozier genuinely envisioned Batman as a serious series focused on crime investigation and darkness. Closer in spirit to the 1940s comic books than to a children's show. But ABC saw a different opportunity. According to later interviews with Dozier and writer Lorenzo Simple Jr., the network wanted a loud, flashy, easy-to-watch program, something that could attract both children and adults after dinner. Instead of avoiding the inherent absurdity of comic books, they decided to fully embrace it. Bright colors, exaggerated dialogue, P and BAM sound effects, and deliberately over-the-top performances, that decision completely transformed the show. Batman no longer pretended to be realistic. It became a full-fledged camp spectacle, almost like a live-action cartoon. Ironically, it was precisely this total lack of seriousness that allowed the series to outlive many of its contemporaries. 14. The Riddler was born for Frank Gorshin. You've got me, Batman, it's too delicious. I even gave you a tip-off. The Riddler, as played by Frank Gorshin, was one of the most explosive characters in Batman 1966. Loud laughter, constant twitching, rapid-fire speech, and almost never standing still. On screen, he looked like a storm of pure energy. But behind the green suit-covered inquisition marks was a very practical problem: salary. By the second season, Gorshin asked for a raise. He knew he had become one of the show's most popular villains, but the producers refused. Negotiations collapsed and Gorshin left the series. To fill the gap, ABC introduced a replacement villain. The puzzler bespectacled, formal in speech, even quoting Shakespeare. Audiences disliked him and ratings dropped noticeably. By Season 3, Gorshin returned and proved one thing. Some roles seem replaceable until viewers say number 13. Cesar Romero's unshavable mustache, here comes Stanley. Come early. A few people realized that Cesar Romero had one non-negotiable rule. His mustache had to remain intact even under the Joker's iconic white makeup. Rather than argue, the makeup artist simply painted over it in every episode. And if you look closely, you can still see it right there beneath the grease paint, twitching with every smile, especially in close-ups when the Joker laughs loudly or tilts his head under the studio lights. The mustache is still visible, slightly darker in tone, and subtly vibrating with each line of dialogue. It is one of the strangest makeup choices in television history, and somehow it made the Joker even more unsettling. 12. The strange truth about the giant map on the Batcave wall. Sharp-eyed viewers noticed something odd about the massive map on the Batcave wall. It isn't Gotham. It is a real-world map of St. Louis, Missouri, flipped upside down and reused as Batman's Secret City layout. Why budget? Props were needed quickly, and the art department simply reused what they already had. The funny part is that this map appears repeatedly across many episodes, with Batman and Robin pointing at it with complete seriousness, as if studying top-secret intelligence. And from that moment on, every time you watch the show, you no longer see Gotham. You just see Missouri being fought over in the most dramatic way possible. Point 11. The over-the-top exclamations were improvised. Holy iceberg. Holy blizzard. Holy schizophrenia. Holy snowball. Holy Sherlock Holmes. Holy Venezuela. You rewrite. Holy rainbow. Holy hole in a donut. Holy back. Do you remember those moments when Robin's eyes went wide? He pointed dramatically and shouted, "Holy ravioli, Batman!" Those exclamations sound as if they were carefully scripted, but in reality, most of them were invented right on set. Burt Ward was encouraged to say anything that sounded silly enough and loud enough for children to remember. Ward recalled in many interviews that Hefton came up with the lines just moments before the cameras rolled. Holy iceberg, holy safari, holy double talk. If it sounded fun and didn't slow the scene down, the producers let it pass. Over time, it became a familiar mechanism of the show. Robin didn't just react to danger. He commented on using exclamations so exaggerated they bordered on the surreal. That repetition is exactly what made audiences wait to see what Robin would holy next. Point 10. The producer knew nothing about Batman, like someone walking into a costume party without ever having read the invitation. William Dozier admitted that he had never read a single Batman comic before taking the job. And that ignorance turned out to be one of the show's greatest creative advantages. That complete lack of reverence for the source material freed him from fan expectations and pressure, allowing him to see Batman as a strange idea. A billionaire dressed as a bat fighting criminals in broad daylight. Where comic book fans might have played it straight, Dozier transformed Batman into pop art. Creative genius sometimes comes from not knowing what you're not supposed to do, but wait until you hear which Hollywood legend begged to play the Joker. Point 9. Batman forced the entire United States to watch TV on its schedule. When Batman premiered in 1966, ABC made an unprecedented decision, airing 2 episodes per week on Wednesday and Thursday nights using a cliffhanger format where the first episode ended mid-crisis and the second resolved it. According to internal ABC documents later quoted in the memoirs of producer William Dozier, the goal was very clear: to lock viewers into the Batman time slot. Miss Wednesday night and Thursday night would make no sense at all. This was a major gamble. No prime time series had ever demanded that audiences tune in on 2 consecutive nights, let alone reorganize family dinners, children's homework, and daily routines around a single television show. But the gamble paid off. According to Nielsen ratings, Batman quickly became one of the most watched programs in the United States, especially among families with children. Many television historians now consider this strategy a precursor to the concept of appointment TV television. You had to show up for on time or be left behind. Point 8. The dance craze that Batman created. Do you remember the scene where Batman suddenly stepped onto a dance floor and launched into stiff yet confident moves in his Batsuit? The Batusi was never in the script. Adam West improvised it on the spot simply to fill a comedic moment, and no one expected it to explode into a nationwide phenomenon. Within weeks, teenagers across America were copying Batman's hip swivels and his very serious finger-pointing at school dances. The Batusi appeared on television. Dance shows was mentioned in newspapers and found its way into films and commercials throughout the late 1960s. DJs even began calling out the dance by name on the floor, and crowds instantly knew what to do. It was perfect proof of Batman's cultural reach. A single improvised moment was enough to define an entire trend. One awkward dance, one to it, and America swayed together to the rhythm. Point 7. The utility belt. A joke prepared with complete seriousness throughout the series, the utility belt contained all kinds of impossible items: shark repellent spray, instant antidotes, even objects so illogical they were outright funny. According to the writers and producers, including William Dozier, this was a deliberate choice to turn extreme over-preparation into the comedic identity of the television version of Batman. Instead of trying to explain things scientifically, they pushed the absurdity to an extreme for laughs, and the audience immediately understood the game. These gadgets also reflected the camp spirit. ABC was pursuing Batman was always one step ahead, not because it was superhuman, but because he was absurdly overprepared. That impossible level of preparation is what turned the utility belt into a cultural symbol, both a life-saving tool and a long-running inside joke throughout the series. Point 6. The scenes of Batman and Robin climbing buildings looked like real stunts. What's wrong, Robin? Tired? Dizzy? I had a strange feeling, Batman. As if visions of sugar plums were dancing in my head. Do you remember the scenes of Batman and Robin clinging to ropes climbing straight up the sides of Gotham's buildings? Capes fluttering while citizens leaned out of windows to greet them. They looked like dangerous stunts where a slip could happen at any moment, but the truth was far simpler. The entire wall was actually laid flat on the studio floor. Adam West and Burt Ward simply walked normally while the camera was rotated 90 degrees to trick Theviewer's eye. No cables, no real height, no heat danger. Thanks to this cheap but clever trick, the show could invite a long list of celebrity guest stars: Topir Midclimb, Sammy Davis Jr., Dick Clark, Jerry Lewis, who only had to step sideways into frame and exchange a few lines as if they were standing on the 10th floor. 5. When Vincent Price broke the script with a real egg, exactly. Well, now let us examine this more carefully. Ha! How exhilarating! Well, I have great expectations for our relationship. Vincent Price arrived on the Batman set with the bearing of a classic Hollywood gentleman, elegant, witty, and in complete control of the stage. The role of Egghead, a villain obsessed with eggs, seemed tailor-made for him. But in one climactic scene, Price decided to take his commitment beyond the script. Price grabbed a real egg and hurled it straight at Burt Ward's head. The egg shattered right in front of the camera. The yolk ran down Robin's mask and into his hair. The entire set froze. The director stood motionless. The cameras kept rolling. Vincent Price laughed and treated it as a spontaneous theatrical moment. But Ward did not. Ward immediately walked off the set in anger. According to his later accounts, it was not a joke, but an act of disrespect, especially on a show that depended on trust and safety coordination between actors. The two exchanged harsh words backstage, and their relationship never truly returned to what it had been before. 4. Adam West battered body count every time Batman charged into action. The cost was not visible on screen. It was paid by Adam West's body. Throughout the filming of Batman 1966, West repeatedly performed his own stunts, jumping over cars, falling from low heights, and wrestling on concrete floors while wearing a thick, rigid costume. The result was a list of injuries longer than any television actor would ever want. West cracked ribs, tore shoulder muscles while lifting heavy props, and severely bruised his hip in one fall, leaving him unable to sit properly for weeks. Insurance companies repeatedly demanded that the production use stunt doubles, but West refused. He believed audiences could sense the fake if Batman was not actually him in the frame. Co-stars and producers later confirmed that being a television hero in that era meant accepting physical punishment as part of the job. West saw it as professional duty and as a matter of pride. Batman always stood tall on screen, but behind the scenes, the man inside the Batsuit had to struggle back to his feet many times. 3 Multiple Batmobiles nobody knew about. On screen, the Batmobile looks like a single unmistakable icon. Sleek, aggressive, and instantly recognizable, but the truth behind the scenes was far more complicated. The Batmobile in Batman 1966 was not one car, but an entire fleet. Car customizer George Barris based the Batmobile on the 1955 Lincoln Futura concept car. But once the series went into rushed production, one vehicle was not enough. At least 3 to 4 different Batmobile versions were built and used simultaneously. 1 hero car for close-ups, 1 for speed driving shots, 1 for stunt work, and a lighter version for handling interior scenes. Each car was modified for a specific filming purpose. Some could not actually drive. Some lacked full equipment. Some existed purely to look good while parked. But through careful camera work and smart editing, audiences believed they were seeing a single vehicle. And you fooled. 2.2. Who created the Bat-tail silhouette? Do you remember the shots of Batman standing atop buildings, his cape spreading into jagged bat-like edges whenever the wind caught it? That Bat-tail silhouette was not accidental, nor was it merely decorative. In Batman 1966, the cape with its distinctive scalloped edges was directly based on Batman's original comic book design drawn by Bob Kane in 1939. However, turning it into a clearly readable image on television was the work of the TV costume design team led by Jan Kemp, who was responsible for refining Adam West's suit. Kemp understood something crucial on 1960s television. Small details would disappear unless they were exaggerated. So, the cape's edges were cut deeply into sharp points, ensuring that whether Batman stood still or turned, viewers could instantly recognize the bat shape. The result was that Bat-tail silhouette becoming part of the visual language of television. Batman dramatic, slightly over the top, and completely unmistakable. 1. A ghost town that wandered into Gotham. Do you remember the scene in which Batman walks into a deserted, silent town with not a single soul in sight in the episode Population Zero? It looks as if it were designed specifically for one of Gotham's most chilling cases. But the truth is, Gotham was only visiting temporarily. That abandoned town set was not built for Batman 1966 at all. It was a leftover film set from the science fiction movie The Andromeda Strain. 1971. Instead of spending money to build a new set, the production team reused the entire existing location, houses, streets, even the cold, empty atmosphere, and simply changed the sing to make it Gotham. This was a common Hollywood practice in the 1960s to 7s. Economical, fast, and surprisingly effective. So, what about you? Which moment from Batman 1966 do you remember most? Leave a comment. And if you want to continue unlocking other deleted scenes from Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. You may be surprised by what Hollywood has kept hidden from you for decades.